very interesting topics. Number one, driverless cars, and number two, a new space capsule for the U.S. To continue its exploration into space without having to depend on the bear, Russia.
Right, the Russians. And that space capsule is going to be amazing because we're accustomed to a capsule being a very dumb thing. You know that over the last 2 weeks, the California Institute of Technology's Keck Institute for Space Studies flew me out to California for 2 weeks, and I've been brainstorming with people who put together planetary missions, and they've been letting me help them do that, which is amazing. And one of the tricks right now in our space program is a space problem. It's a space gap. Since 2011, when we retired the shuttle, we haven't been able to get Americans to the International Space Station, a $140 billion space station that we paid most of the money for, except on Russian capsules. And last week at the conference, it's the Soyuz that is taking us up there right now. I was spending time. I spent over an hour with a guy who spent 11 days on the International Space Station and came back by Soyuz capsule. And from his description, I suddenly realized I've never seen a picture of a Soyuz capsule, and I've been involved in space as a board member of the National Space Society and a member of the Board of Governors of the National Space Society for 7 years now. And from what he was saying, it sounded to me like the Soyuz capsule lands like a baseball at high speed and then bounces across the terrain. So, and I asked him, and he said, yes, that's indeed what's happening. Elon Musk's Dragon, which he's going to reveal tomorrow, sometimes called the Dragon Rider because people ride in it. He's been calling it the Dragon version 2, has two major features, aside from the fact that it has 7 seats and it'll carry 7 people into space on an American vehicle for much less than previous costs. It has retro rockets. It has 8 retro rockets. What does that mean? That means instead of landing like a beach ball and bouncing around, or instead of landing in the sea and then having its astronauts in danger of drowning while they're bobbing around waiting for a ship to reach them, this capsule is a spaceship. It lands on its own. It fires its retro rockets and comes down in a controlled, gentle, pinpoint landing. We have never had anything.
Well,
like
that kind of sounds
before.
like the space shuttle.
It is like the space shuttle, except the space shuttle is huge and extremely expensive, and extremely expensive to refurbish. It was costing us $2 billion a year, whether we flew it or not. And it was going up something like twice a year, which means divide $2 billion by 2, and you get $1 billion per flight. The Dragon capsule is almost infinitely cheaper than that, and it's reusable, and it doesn't have to go through the elaborate refurnishing that the space shuttle, with all of its tiles and crazy systems, had to go through. So what basically Elon is doing is it has cost about $38,000 a pound to get an astronaut into space on a space shuttle, along with all of the equipment it takes to sustain him. It will cost closer to $400 a pound to get an astronaut into space. Think of that difference, $38,000 a pound versus $400 a pound. And the price will come down even further as Elon further develops his reusable rockets. And this is relevant to the new Google driverless car that's been making all of the headlines today, because the guys at Google and Elon Musk are friends. And Google has bought a dozen robotics companies, and with those robotics, it's robotics and artificial intelligence companies, complete with a company that has learning algorithms so robots can teach themselves how to do things. And those robots are being used by SpaceX.
Howard, I hate to do this, my friend, but as it happens every time you're with us, time goes by so fast. I want to thank you so much for joining us, Howard. I look forward to the next time you join us back here in the X Zone. Take care, my friend.
Well, it's a pleasure, Rob. Have a good night.
Exonation, www.howardbloom.net. I'll be back on the other side of the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour here in the X Zone, so don't go away.